Our guest speaker is Leslie Farkas, who had the opportunity to spend 5 absolutely extraordinary years living in Prashanti Nilayam with Baba. And we shall be discussing his path of surrender, devotion, and faith. So, Leslie, for so many of us, the spiritual calling starts with some kind of significant sign that we just can't ignore. Could you share what that was for you?
Thank you, Greg, for that a very beautiful and generous introduction. With that, I must say this. I offer my humble pranams at the lotus feet of Sri Sathya Sai Baba. Please, Lord, speak through us, and may there be love among us. Sai Ram. Greg, yes, it's a good question. And for me, I would say that my spiritual journey began at a young age. I was in my teens, and already I, at a young age, had a deep calling for God. But I never fit into any kind of a religion, or I read different books and so on, and was exposed to different traditions. However, for me, what really resonated for me was actually Jesus. Jesus was close to me because I felt he was my brother. And I also felt that if there was anyone on earth that I could relate to, that of being God on earth, it was him. So that's what I felt in the beginning. However, I was a young man, and I, of course, had all my desires and things of that nature. And so I was going on my path, and I was kind of feeling a bit empty. And as time went by, my mother actually, she was introduced to Sai Baba when I was in my teens. And she and I, when I first saw Swami, I thought, what a strange person. And I wasn't comfortable with her, with the whole thing. And who is this person with the funny hair? And she started to travel to India. And when she came back, she was coming back radiant. And she was feeling, I was seeing in her a joy that I couldn't find within myself. So my mother saw that I'm opening up spiritually and needing something. And she says, why don't you come with me to India? However, this mind of mine was saying, no, I don't need to have a guru. I don't need to go there. Maybe he's going to steal my soul or do something strange to me. So I came up with an excuse why I shouldn't go. So I told my mother, because I knew this one thing, that you can only go see Swami if he invites you. And I've heard stories about this, but even then I didn't really believe them, but I thought this is a good excuse to give my mother. So that night I had a dream, and spiritual dreams, especially these kinds, feel more real than this reality that we call reality. Now, in this dream, I'm walking on a desert road. It's a dry desert road. And I notice that I hear behind me a sound. And I look back and I see a stagecoach coming. And the stagecoach comes up right to me and stops. And the door opens. And I look inside and I see all these, I see a group of sages and saints, and I can only discern two of them. One is Gandhi, and the other one is J. Krishnamurti. And they indicate to me, get inside. So I get inside with them. I feel very awkward because I'm with this group of powerful beings, or these very auspicious beings, and it's just little old me. So we travel on this road in the stagecoach, and I see that we're heading to a hill, and there's a road going around the hill coming up to a castle at the top. And we get to the top, into the courtyard, we get out, and there are all these high souls all around me. And in front of me, in the center of the courtyard, is a tent. I can't see inside the opening to the tent because it's so bright outside. So I walk up to it to see who's there. And guess who walks out? It is Sathya Sai Baba. And he walks out right to me. And he is short and at a height of what I would estimate some 5'4" or so. And only later on, when I actually got to stand next to Swami, he was exactly that height. So in my dream, before I even saw Swami, except for in a picture, he comes out and he looks right into my eyes. And I knew he's calling me. So next morning I wake up and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, am I going to should I tell my mother? So I tell I go in the breakfast and I tell my mother I had a dream. And so I told and she said, what happened? And I told her the story. And so she jumped up and down and said, Swami's calling you, Swami's calling you. So this was my introduction. And this is the start of what I would call this journey to surrender, devotion, and faith. And it is the journey, and the journey requires, to get to the end, it does require a guru. Swami says that the only way to get to the end, to the goal, is with the help of the true guru. And the true guru is God.
Sai Ram, yes, that is indeed an amazing first dream, and it had to be, and Baba would have it no other way. That's something that would get anybody to sort of sit up and take notice and start some self-inquiry. And of course, it is said, when the aspirant is ready, the teacher will arrive. And what we as Sai devotees feel for him hasn't come from any books. Baba is an experience that cannot be explained because each of us experiences him uniquely. Experiencing him cannot be taught or learned, in fact, for Baba is pure, endless love. And speaking of just how loving Baba is, Leslie, I was wondering if we could jump straight ahead into your very first interview, and if you could give us a sense of what that might have been like for you.
Sure, Greg. Actually, that is a perfect story, and I guess the reason that it's the perfect story, and it's one that I tell often when I'm asked to tell stories about Swami, is because it is one of the most profound. Now, before I get to it, I must let you know that I didn't know who Swami really was. I saw my mother is getting happier and happier and content and balanced. And what was happening with me, however, was I'm in my 20s now, and I've pretty much gotten everything that I wanted. I had a good job. I bought the things that I wanted. And the more I got those things, I just felt more and more empty. I didn't feel, I felt this deep sense that what is life for? Why am I here? Why? And it got to a point where I got very desperate. And as I said, my background was I read different books and different things. And sure enough, I thought, well, I'm going to go to India and I'll stay there for 6 months. So I took a bunch of books with me as well. And so I was reading these books and I was there. But the more I read, the less I really felt I was getting anywhere. Swami says that the religion is trying to live somebody else's experience, whereas spirituality is living your own experience, your own divine experience. So I'm here reading and trying to absorb all of this, but feeling less and less happy, more and more empty, until one day on March 4th, 1992, I end up in Darshan, and Darshan is where Swami comes out to see the devotees. And I was at the end of my rope. I really couldn't picture the next moment that was going to come next. I couldn't picture what I was going to do the next day or even the next second. I was really at an existential emptiness. And I asked a friend next to me, could you give me a piece of paper and a pencil? Now, mind you, I didn't know, I didn't fully know who Swami was. I knew he's a great, great being at that time. I knew he's something like Jesus or what, but maybe he can help me. But right here, right now, what I wrote down on here, I just said, Dear Lord, I don't know who you are or what you are, but I give my body, my mind, and my spirit to you. So that morning, Swami comes out for darshan, and I'm in second row, and he comes to where I'm at. And I reach my letter out to him, and he takes it. And previous to this, I had asked Swami 3 times for an interview, and each time he gave some excuse. And this time, I asked Swami, interview, please. And he says, I will see, I will see. And he begins to walk away. So as I said, I couldn't picture the next moment. I couldn't picture, I was just at this very deep ending, a very deep surrender. And what came out from my mouth came from my heart. And I just said, please. And Swami says that if you call out to the Lord from your heart, he will immediately respond. And sure enough, he turns around and he looks down at me and says, go. So I jump up and I run, not run, but I go quickly up to the veranda, and everyone else finally joins up there. And he asked the people to go in for the interview. And I'm very polite. I let everybody go in first. I'm thinking I should let everyone go in. And so when I go inside, I'm in the very back. And my back is against the wall. And finally, Swami comes in. And even though my eyes now are seeing Swami, this body, that's not what I was seeing. My heart was, my mind was gone. All there was that was what I was seeing was the end of the road. I felt absolutely no need to search anymore, because I felt this love inside of me, which I had never felt like this before. It wasn't the sense that, oh, I found God. It was beyond that. There was no mind here. It was absolute contentment. So Swami sits down, and I have a smile on my face. I didn't realize how much I was smiling through this interview until in the middle of it, I felt my face aching because I was blissed out. Now Swami starts asking people a very important spiritual question. What do you want? And it sounds very simple, but it's a very important question. And Swami asked one gentleman, what do you want, sir? And he says, Swami, I'm looking for a wife for my son. So Swami spoke to him about that. Then another gentleman asked Swami, what do you want? Swami asked this gentleman, what do you want? And he says, Swami, I want to know more about God. So Swami spoke to him about that. But each person he asked, I saw that he wasn't fully satisfied. He was looking for something that someone would ask, and he hadn't found it. So suddenly, I'm absolutely unprepared for this. But he points right back to me and he says, hey, you boy, what do you want? And just think here, just 5 minutes or 10 minutes before, I had no idea who Sai Baba is. I had so many doubts, thinking he's the Antichrist or this or that. But my mind was gone and my heart was full. And what came from my mouth was, all I want is you. And he gets up from his chair and says, good boy, come here. And he waves his hand right in front of me. Oops, he waves his hand right in front of me. And there is now a ring in his, he's holding a ring, a silver ring with a picture with Shirdi Baba on it. And he wants to give it to me. And what do I do? Again, it's not coming from my mind, but I go, no, I don't want it. I had a realization that this ring that he's offering me symbolized everything that I got in this world. And did it really make me happy? What was making me happy for some magical reason was being in the presence of this 5'4" form in front of me. That's what I want. I'm fulfilled with, I don't want things. And so Swami says, but I made it for you. And I said, I don't want it. And so he puts it in my pocket, sits me down and asks me, what do you want? How do you get to God? And I couldn't answer that. I've been reading so many different things. Everyone has a different opinion or a different path. What is it for me? Swami said a very simple thing, which sounds so simple. He says, follow the 3 Ps, patience, patience, perseverance, and purity. Sounds so simple, but try even one of them. Try patience. How easy it is not to have patience, how easy it is to not be pure, all these things. And he says it, you don't have to follow all my teachings, just take one thing and it's enough. And it will get you to the end of the road. So he takes us for a private interview with another group. I believe it was an Italian group. And Swami asked me again, what do you want? And I said, I just want you, Swami. So he takes out the ring from my pocket that he had put there and puts it right in front of my face. Swami's face is about this far away. And he blows on it 3 times. And I can feel the wind on my face as he's blowing. And in an instant, it's no longer a silver ring. It's a golden brooch with Swami's enameled picture on it. And he looks behind me and he sees somebody and he says, this is for you, madam. And it was an Italian lady and she's so happy, and Swami gives it to her. And then Swami again looks down at me again, says, what do you want? And I said, you, Swami. And he goes, take me. And again, out of innocence and out of my heart, I jump into his lap and he goes, no. And I'm hugging him and holding him. And I'm now having a deep realization that, wait a minute, it's not the body that's present that I want. I have this deep realization that what I'm feeling, what I'm sensing as the fulfillment, the love, the divinity is coming through that body, and it's in me. And it was that through the form, you can reach the formless. So we go out from that interview after that, and as we're going out, Swami materializes a bracelet now, a golden bracelet. And before I can even say, I don't want it, he puts it on my wrist and drags me back privately, just the 2 of us, into the private interview room. And he begins to tell me many things. And he tells me things about my past when I was a teenager, an event where I had tried to do something bad. And so and I remember everything that he's told me. He told me the details of it, and only I would know this. And I remember no feeling, and I couldn't do that thing that I was about to do because I felt someone watching me back then, a very strong feeling, but I realized that was my conscience. And now even a deeper realization happened that my conscience is the one in front of me. My conscience is speaking to me through this body in front of me, Swami. Swami is me. So we go back out after this. He's told me a few other things. And finally, I sit down, and this golden bracelet, I feel like this energy going through my arm. It's numb. Of course, I'm blissed out and numbed out anyway, but for 2 weeks, my arm was numb from this. And it was a beautiful gold. It had an Om on it. And it was, but as the days progressed, the gold changed to silver. Then it got darker. It began to almost like decompose until finally it broke. And I took it to Darshan, hoping that maybe Swami can fix it. And I showed it to Swami, and he said, "What can I do, sir?" But back to the last interview, that was when Swami then told my mother and myself to run the Western Canteen, which we did for 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, I think we can only imagine the level of bliss and happiness you must have felt walking out of that interview room, being told you could stay with Baba for a long period of time and be in his close proximity, and on top of that, have something that he materialized for you. And oftentimes we think of that item, and God says, "Well, it's yes, I made that for you, but think of the hand that made it." And we know, we want God because God is actually our true nature. And Baba says, "Yes, I am God, but so are you." The only difference is that between you and I is that I am aware of this, and in fact, you are not. The fundamental truth of humanity's divine nature is that it's the true reality. And I was wondering, during your time there, when you look back, was he able to show you a little bit about your own divine nature and that you are God?
Yes, I have a good, again, the way I relate Swami's teachings and the way I learned them was through experiences, and not just experiences that I've had when I was in India, but experiences here since I came back. But I have something I can share here. And again, this story that I'm telling you here, or these stories that I'm telling you here, it's not about me. Everything that we experience, these deep experiences, are to be shared. They are for everyone. They speak to everyone. So yes, that first interview I had, if that was the last interview I had, the first and the last, it should have been enough. Everything that I needed to hear, to experience, to deeply know was there. However, yes, I come into this world like all of us with a monkey mind, with my past karmas, with all the baggage that we come into this world. And fortunately, actually, this baggage is the very thing that the Lord uses to teach us, to guide us, to transform us. It's the very stuff of the drama. This is a play that we're in. As it's said that, we are not souls. We are souls here, not trying to realize God, but we are God playing that we are this individual. And we're stuck in this. And after this first interview, all I wanted to do was get unstuck. I tasted literally the other side, and I was full of devotion. As I said, I started out, my journey was surrender. The next step is devotion. I was fully devoted. And so as we were doing seva in the canteen, for about 3.5 years into this, I believe it was 2 to 3 years, I was feeling, this mind was saying to myself that, you know, I'm doing all this service and seva, but I really want to to realize that I'm God. It's about time now. And I remember Swami telling me in the one interview that this boy has no patience. He's telling my mother has no patience. But here I am, 3 years, thinking that I should be able to realize my true reality. And so I wanted to read more Vedanta and books and so on, but I had no time. So what happened was Swami sent a message for me to no longer work in the canteen. And what I'm about to relate to you to all is the danger of the mind in spirituality. It depends on where you turn this mind. The mind can be used to destroy itself so that only the heart remains, or the other direction, which is what we use to daily and every day, that it wants to take us one way or another, the ego. So I'm now no longer working in the canteen, so I thought now is a good chance I can read books, and I went out and bought books, and I started to read that I am God, and this all is illusion. And I had no way of communicating, or at that time, with Swami. I had not established yet in my heart a good communication with my conscience at that time. And I was used to talking with Swami. For the first 6 months of being in India, I had 9 interviews, lots of interaction. And at the end of it, Swami called me in for my last interview before 3.5 years of nothing, and said to me, "You worry if Swami doesn't talk to you. Don't worry if Swami doesn't talk to you or look at you." Very sweet of him. But sure enough, of course, next moment, and just next day, nothing for 3.5 years. There were some breaks, there was grace and so on and different things, but generally nothing. So I'm thinking, how do I know if what I'm learning is right? So I thought some people use a chit or a coin to ask a question. And so I took a coin and I thought, I'm going to ask a question, and if it says yes or no. And I did this, and I tested it too. I would ask a deep spiritual question about a direction I should go, and flip the coin, and I could ask the same question many times, the same time, one after another, and it would always flip to the same side. I mean, I'm an engineer. I know mathematics, so the statistics of that, it's almost impossible. So here is Swami setting me up with this tool right here for a big lesson. So for 6 to 9 months, I developed this big mental philosophy, and we have to be careful when Swami says you are God. It's not the person you identify with. We're so used to thinking it's this ego person, this that I am somehow God. It's not in your mind. It's beyond that. However, here I am developing these thoughts that I am God and everything is Maya. And I'm even saying that even Sai Baba, all of this is Maya. I don't really even need to go to Darshan. Why should I go to Darshan? Because I am God. See the trickery of the mind. So I end up I end up coming up with this date that on March 4th, my anniversary of my first interview, at a certain time, I will realize my true reality. And I will realize I'm God, and this whole thing will dissolve away. And so that day comes, that hour comes and goes by, and nothing happens. And of course, like with all our beliefs, we don't want anything to shake our beliefs. And so immediately the mind tries to patch this up. Oh, it must have been confusing. I misunderstood the date or something, but I really began to doubt. I started to doubt. So next day, it's a gloomy, dreary day, and I'm sitting at darshan, and Swami comes, and I didn't realize that during this time, I had lost my devotion and my love for the divine. I didn't feel anything when Swami would come by because I'm thinking, I'm God, I don't need darshan, right? And I didn't realize this. So Swami came and he just looks at me with a blank face and says, go, meaning go for interview. So I get up and I'm thinking, why is he calling for an interview? I don't need an interview. I'm God, right? So maybe it's a test. So we get inside the interview room, and Swami, every time he talks with people, he's sweet, but when he looks at me, there's no emotion. There's reflecting back the very thing that's in me, emptiness, no love. I'm just full in my head. And he calls me into a private interview and closes the door and then asks me, who are you? And guess what I say to him? I say, I am God, and you are illusion. You are Maya. And Swami goes, no, 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 no. I am God, and you are my son. And I said, and I talked back and I said, no, Swami, I am God, and you are Maya. And Swami's now ready to leave the interview room and turns back to me and says, where is God? And I then, fortunately, answered correctly. I said, everywhere. And that is the teaching that God, Brahman, is everything and in everywhere. And even in my philosophy, of course, if I'm God, I'm everything. So he begins to sit down and he says, very good. Yes, yes. And as he sits down, he grabs my cheek like this and twists it. And what happens then? You think that an avatar, that the divine guru, that when he touches you, he materializes things. These are all trivial things. We only see the form. We only see what we're used to. But when he does this, I literally feel a shake inside of me, and a crack happening, like a burst happening. And in my mind, it was like the edifice of what I had created began to just crumble, and doubts came in my mind that maybe I'm all wrong here. I've been doing this all wrong, and I could feel the mind trying to patch it back up. But before I could patch it back up, Swami says to me, where's your mother? And usually she would come in the interview, but she was in the canteen and couldn't come. And I said, she's in the canteen, Swami. And then he says, why aren't you in the canteen? And now I'm even more confused because I was told by him not to do that. So I am now in shambles. So he indicates the interview's over, and I leave the interview, and I walk back to our room. And my mother is there and asked me, where were you? And I said, I was in an interview. And she couldn't feel that I was in an interview. And I was given vibhuti packets, which he gives, and I showed it to my mother as proof. Look, I was in an interview. But I didn't feel it even myself. And I wasn't realizing what I had lost. And I'll explain what I had lost, but there was something missing. So I told my mother I took 3 hours and I explained the whole philosophy that was developed. And I said it so well. It was so well created, so well fabricated that my mother even believed it. She almost believed that the only thing that's real is me, and she and everybody else in this whole world is just an illusion. But then she looked down and then shook her head and said, no, I don't believe anything what you believe. And I said, why? She says, because there's no love in you. And my gosh, that was like a knife into me. And I got up and I, not in a negative way, but a sudden realization. And I went out for a walk and walked around the ashram outside for quite a while. And I And during that walk, that what Swami had done, this thing, was now fully happening. All of it collapsed. All my beliefs. I can't explain to you what it was like, but I couldn't believe in anything anymore. Nothing. No philosophy, nothing. I couldn't believe in God or me or anything. It was absolute emptiness. But the one thing that surfaced from all of this was something that hit me so hard. And that was in my very first interview, that awakening of that love. I had lost it. I had lost that pure, unsullied love for the divine. And I ran up back to our room, and I fell in front of our altar, and I said, "Dear Lord, I'm so sorry. I'm never going to read. I'm putting away all these books. All I need are your words. All I need is you in my heart. Please give me back that love, that devotion. It means that's the only thing that I want. Everything else means nothing." And so I went to bed. Next morning, I went to darshan, really sad, empty, still empty. And guess what happened? Swami came out, and it was like the sun rising, the most beautiful sunrise. And my heart blossomed again, and the love came back. And this was the lesson of how dangerous the mind is. Surrender the mind. Work from your heart. The mind is only a tool, but it's a dangerous one that you have to be careful with.
Yeah, this is, I think, really a very good example about how clear it is that the spiritual path is walking that razor's edge. Even with the best intentions, the most pure of intentions, the mind can so easily lead us astray. And Baba doesn't call it the monkey mind lightly, which of course brings us to the age-old question about keeping the mind in check and being able to focus more. I was wondering what experiences you had, if any, or insights that you can share with us on that Baba might have given you.
So actually, this is something that I remember came to me before. I know a good teaching that would answer your question, Greg. So the question about how do we calm the mind? What is the problem with the mind? What will subdue the mind? And as well as I was saying, Swami says that we are full of these vasanas and these mental tendencies and the things that we wrestle with, all of us with a different cross that we're bearing. How do we get out? How do we dissolve that? And how do we get back to what I call home? How do we get back to our true nature? Because the true nature as I said, remember, I love Jesus, and I love that he's the embodiment of and now for me, I'm actually living for this 5 years with the divine in a body, in a form, showing me what it is to be truly alive. And that's my goal, and still is, and until I breathe my last breath, that's my goal in my life. So I asked this question during my stay there: how do we get there? And Swami, in one afternoon, answered this in a beautiful experience. So this happens during that first 6 months when I'm there with Swami. I had so much devotion. I would call myself a gopika, which means someone who is intoxicated with pure love for God, and specifically for God in form. And so I had even a hard time not seeing him for a day. I had to have his darshan. But one day, Swami went to travel to another town, and for 3 days, and asked my mother, and I sent the message to stay and continue to feed the devotees in the canteen. So it was tough 3 days, but on the 4th day when Swami came back, I went for darshan, got to sit first row, and next to me was a young man who worked with us in the canteen. And it was a beautiful morning. The sun was just right. You could hear the birds. The temperature was just right. And Swami comes out of the Purna Chandra, and my favorite darshan music begins. And I am, and not only that, but I remember this clearly. Swami has a fragrance that is more beautiful than any perfume or any flower. And I had that smell in the interview, but now I'm sitting here and I get enveloped from it. And he's hundreds of feet away, and I'm enveloped in this fragrance. And my heart is now, oh my gosh, I am feeling so much love. And he's coming across from the lady's side and coming closer and across. And this love is growing more and more. And I'm now, and every time he's getting closer, it's 1,000 times more, 1,000 times more. And once he's on the men's side, it's grown so much now that I'm in bliss. And I'm thinking, this is it. This is what it is to be fully immersed in your divinity, in who we really are. But little did I know, because guess what happens, Greg, next? It's unbelievable. So, he's coming closer, and every step he takes, it becomes slow motion. And this love now grows 10,000, a million more. And finally, he's next to the person beside me, and he takes his next step. And that moment, this incredible love, this incredible bliss goes into infinity. It goes beyond bliss. And my eyes automatically close. I'm no longer sensing that I'm even in my body. I am now, there's no sense of anything anymore. I don't know how to say what it's like, but I'm beyond bliss. And in front of me, I see like a cloth. And I know this cloth is my mind. And Swami actually says, he uses that example that your mind is a cloth, and it's made out of thoughts, all these things that make you who you are, this identity. And in the presence of this almost infinite love and bliss, it could not exist anymore. So, and I started to see each thread being pulled out. And as it was being pulled out, I but I knew I'm dying, not physically, but who I've identified as being, this individual, was disappearing. And I wasn't afraid. I was witnessing it. And in front of me, I'm rushing to this veil. And I knew that if I go across this veil, I'm not coming back anymore. That whole reality that we call this world was not even a thought. It wasn't even a speck. It was nothing compared to this. However, guess what happens? The gentleman next to me, he did not know this, but I had issues that I projected onto this guy while we were working in the canteen. And a bad thought came into my mind as the last thread was about to come out. And the moment that thought came into my mind, that bad thought, all the threads just came back in, and the whole cloth was put back together. This bliss diminished, and I'm back in my sense of being in a body, and my eyes are opening, and Swami is walking away. And as he's walking away, the gravity and message of this comes to me. How do you get back to God? How do we get back? It is through love. It is through love. And do we need our own effort? Well, yes, it came through this gentleman sitting next to me. This bad thought came into me. And in my last interview, when Swami said I should go back after the 5 years of living there, he said, go back. And I said, but Swami, all I want is you. I only want liberation. And he says, yes, yes, I will give. But how can I give if the water in the pot is dirty? What is the water in the pot? This body is a temple of God. However, as I was saying in my previous talk, I was talking about almost losing my mind. And I must say this, that experience with Swami about him, I'm almost losing my mind. I must say this here, that 2 years after that, when this break came and I finally had an interview after 3.5 years, we go into the private interview room with my mother. And we, as we're sitting down, Swami says to my mother, this boy is crazy. He says, sorry, this boy is crazy. He thinks he's God and I'm Maya. And my mother is saying back, I know, Swami, I know. And I'm going, Swami, no, no, no. And he goes, shh, shh. Swami is saying this, he's crazy, he's crazy. And my mother starts to have tears in her eyes and says, Swami, thank you for saving him. And Swami turns to me and says, yes, I saved him. That going back to this experience that I just had with the cloth, that this crazy mind of ours, it is our duty to do service, to do meditation, to do the normal work in our lives, and do it with what? With love. Do it with love. But here's now the third most message, the big message that came that I was always wondering, is it all my effort? Do I get across this ocean of illusion with my effort? No. As we said in the beginning, the way you get across is with grace. It's with the grace of the Lord. And this whole experience of this love and everything was his grace. And he showed me the effort I need to do is to cleanse myself. That's why we're here in this world.
Yes, we must all make such a great effort. This spiritual journey does take a lot of work. I wanted to ask you, Leslie, right now there may be people watching who haven't had the chance to go to India like you have. They may not have had the chance to sit in darshan and connect with the physical form. I was wondering, what advice would you have for someone who is new to Baba right now and connecting with God?
So I totally resonate with that question. It's very important, and I have to kind of go back and the threads that we're talking about here shed a light on that. And as I said, I was flipping this coin thinking I'm talking with Swami this way. He was using that to get me to get this craziness out of me. And thank you, Lord. It's probably some vasana, some karmic thing that I've had for many lifetimes that he finally pulled out. But how do we communicate? How do we communicate? And the number one thing from the very beginning that I learned in my journey with Swami is it's a personal relationship. It's a friendship. It's a love. It is one which is intimate and needs to be nurtured just like you have your best friend or the one you love. You spend your time nurturing it. And the teaching that I was mentioning in the beginning, that the conscience, Swami showed me that he is my conscience, that there's no difference between the voice in the silence of my heart than his voice outside as the body that was with us. I had an interview which I can relate, which Swami talks about this. This was when I was doing public relations officer work, speaking to devotees the last year and a half of being in India. And there was a gentleman who did this with me, and we called in for an interview, and he loved to read about Ramakrishna. So we sat down in the private interview, and during that interview, he told Swami, with such love and enthusiasm, he said, Swami, you were Ramakrishna, you were Ramakrishna. And I was looking at, why is he saying this? What is he trying to say? And then Swami just uplifts and turns the whole conversation and says, Krishna, Rama. And then he looks at me, Sai Baba, the only thing that is permanent. And then he takes his finger and he puts it onto my heart, is your conscience. Follow it. The conscience is the very voice of the Lord. And it's our daily activity of inviting him and allowing him to be with us, giving the time for him to be with us. But the next important thing about this, and I think here's a very powerful lesson in this, is in order to walk with the Lord and have him with us, in some ways, we need to be a vessel for him. And Swami says we need to be pure. As he said, patience, purity, perseverance. We have to have those three. But there's another three that's super important. And that is that we need to have unity of thought, word, and deed. That means what you say, what you think, what you say, and what you do must be one. And even more important to that, or part of that, is that what you think must come from your heart, from your conscience. That's where he's the one, your true reality is. So there comes a time when you get tested in this. And for me, I had a very powerful test of following my conscience and doing this three. Do what you think, say, and do as one. And these tests are not because the Lord is trying to beat you over the head. It's like the blacksmith when he makes a sword, he heats up the metal and he pounds it, heats it up, cools it again until it's the right temper. Because if he doesn't do this, it'll either bend too easily or it will shatter. So there was a test that came that I would like to share in this. And that was, after about 3.5 years, 4 years of running the canteen, Swami sent a message to my mother and I that we should stop the canteen and wait for his instructions. And just to give you a background about my mother, as I said, that she came to Swami first, and was the way she came to Swami was that she, even before she knew him, my father had asked her, what do you want the rest of your life? Your son is now grown and so on. And she says, all I want to do is find God, live with him, and serve him. And guess what happened? That's exactly what happened. I think a week after she said this, a book of Swamis came to her, and her whole journey happened. And from the day we served with Swami, she served with full devotion. She gave herself to it. I know I'm probably biased because she's my mother, but I have never met someone who was so loving and we're not perfect. None of us are perfect. But that she worked from 4 a.m. till 10 p.m, and we did this for the all year round with only a 1.5 months break, but seven days a week. So we stopped the canteen. My mother is getting rest. I'm getting rest, but the people are wondering, we need the food. So they were writing to Swami, please, can you open the canteen? Please, we need the food. We want to do service. People would come from all around the world to do service, if they could, the service in Swami's canteen. I remember a Japanese group came with buses, and they showed up such humility and asked my mother if it's possible to do any kind of service. And my mother said, sure. And they cried tears. And I remember when they left, they were just so overwhelmed to be able to do service there. So anyway, so I'm doing the public relations work, and I'm sitting at Darshan with this other gentleman, and Swami calls us for an interview. And we go in for the interview, and we finally get in the private interview, and we sit down, and Swami had spoken to the man for a little while, and Swami turns to me and says, you run the Western Canteen. I want you to run the Western Canteen. And the very first thing, and this is what Swami says about the conscience. How do you know when the difference between the conscience and the mind? Well, the conscience is the first voice that speaks. However, immediately our mind wants to override it, and we don't even notice that voice. But right now in this interview, the first thing that comes up in me very clearly is that, what? Me? Not me. And I said to Swami, but Swami, why not my mother? She can run the canteen. And then this story, what I'm going to tell you, is a test story. It is Swami testing me, because what he says next was, no, not your mother. And he begins to tell things about my mother, which I can't believe. And I'm thinking that, what? And Swami would say, yes, this is true. And he would say, isn't it? Isn't it? However, in my heart, not just in my heart, but the 5 years that I worked daily with my mother, I never saw any of the kind of things that Swami was saying. So how can this be? We all say that the Guru speaks the truth. But if he speaks the truth, was I seeing illusion here? So I am now wondering what I'm going to do. And Swami says, yes, you run the canteen. And I tried to come up and I said, but when, Swami? And he says, tomorrow. And then I'm trying to come up with an excuse why I can't run the canteen, because my heart is saying you can't do this, because if I do this, it's endorsing something which is not true about my mother. So can you believe I'm caught in this in-between thing? So I come up with an excuse and I say, Swami, I don't have the keys. And he says, don't worry, I'll send them to you tomorrow. And I'm like, how can I get out of this now? And so Swami says, the interview is over, and he's standing up. I'm in so much confusion. I can't believe what's going on. And the man with me asks Swami for Padnamaskar, goes down for Padnamaskar. Swami says, yes, do. And he's touching Swami's feet. And remember, this man is a witness here. Now, when he goes down and Swami sees that he can't see anything anymore, Swami turns to me and has a mischievous smile and winks at me like this. That moment, all the doubt goes out of my mind, and I know that this is all a test. This is all just him seeing if I will follow the truth. And it's a deep realization. And what happens next? After he winks, he pulls me to him and he hugs me like Hanuman. And I'm closing my eyes and I'm saying, this is the Swami that I love, not this Maya, the guru outside who's trying to teach me a lesson. I came here to follow the truth. I'm here for the truth. And he lets go of me, and we get up, and guess what? Immediately after leaving this interview, my mind is going wild. What just happened? And not only that, okay, if this is a lesson and it was just all about me thinking that what's right and wrong, what happens if he actually tests me and he sends me the keys tomorrow? So I go back upstairs. I feel all beat up. I feel like it's like I didn't feel like I had an interview. I felt like I was in a boxing match, because how dare I disregard what he says? But my conscience is saying otherwise, and he tells me to follow it. So I go to, and I sit down, and my mother is in the room, and I promised myself I wouldn't tell my mother what Swami said about her. But guess what? I'm Mr. Tell-It-All, and I tell my mother, and it doesn't shake her faith at all. She first says, "Why? How can Swami say such a thing?" But then I saw in her, and she starts to cry. But then I see her, she stops, and I see in her eyes a knowing that, wait a minute, this is a test that Swami's doing to my son, because she knew what the truth was too. And then I said, what should I do? If Swami sends the keys, and then she says, don't ask me. This is between you and Swami. So now I'm on my own. I'm on my own with my conscience as one thing, but then my mind is going, but I can run the canteen. I know how to do this. But then the next thing is, but if I do this, I am endorsing the not the truth. So I go outside for a walk, and I finally get back upstairs. I barely sleep. Next morning, I wake up and I write down, and I said, I know how to fix this. I'm going to write a letter to Swami, and if he takes it, that means that what he said there was just a test and he doesn't want me to do it. But I suddenly realized that, wait a minute, if I doubt what he says in the interview, now if I write this down on this paper and he takes it, I'm doubting as well. So I'm just in a string of doubts. There's no way to get out of this. So I calm down, and I remember him hugging me. And I remember that I'm here to follow the truth, only the truth. So I feel this sense of peace come over me, and a sense of strength, and a sense of incredible self-confidence, self-satisfaction, as Swami says, which comes from self-confidence. And I write another letter, and I say, dear Swami, everything that you said in the interview is not true. I came in this world to follow the truth, and I will not take the keys. Even if you throw me out of the ashram and I never see you again, I can't do it. So I fold this back up, and I'm now going to darshan almost with a skip in my step, that I feel this confidence. But guess what? Yeah, you've got an angel on your shoulder, but there's also a little devil now speaking to me. But what if, Leslie, you're wrong? And doubt comes in my mind. And I remember Swami in my interview would love to tell me, doubting Thomas, doubting Thomas. Yes, this is, as I said, you know, my trip is surrender, devotion. Now comes faith. So I get to darshan. I sit in fifth row, put my head down, and I'm wondering what's going to happen. I want to give this letter to him, and I feel a tap on my shoulder, and I look up, and there is a sevadal who is helping there in the seating people, and he says, "Come with me." And I get up and I walk, and I see that sure enough, Swami's going to do this all the way through. There, standing there, is the gentleman with the keys. And my heart sinks, but at the same time, my legs start to shake, but I said, no, Swami, I want to follow the truth. So I walk up to him, and he puts his hand out and says, congratulations, sir. I just came from Swami, and he says that you are now going to run the Western Canteen. Here are the keys. And I say, I can't take them. And he goes, why? And I'm now like, I can't tell him all the things that I've just told you here. I pray in my heart, please let me say something that is good enough for here. Please, Swami. And what comes out of my mouth is I say, sir, I had an interview with Swami yesterday and we discussed this and I won't take the keys. And he goes, okay, go sit down. So I go and I sit down. A few minutes later, a tap on my shoulder again, and same Sevadal, he says, come. And he takes me and he sits me in a place where not just first row, but Swami always comes there. I'm like sticking out like a sore thumb. And I'm going now, oh my gosh, Swami, you're doing this whole test all the way through. Not only did I have to tell this man here, I'm not taking the keys, but are you going to ask me? So Swami comes out for out for darshan from the Purna Chandra. And the moment he comes out, I can see him looking towards where I'm at. And he's walking and walking. And as he's coming, every time he stops to talk and take letters, he looks over to make sure that I'm still there. I haven't run away. And I'm sitting there and my heart is pounding. And finally, he's coming around the corner about 10 feet away. Swami loudly, I mean, not loudly, but everyone can hear, says, did you get the keys? And I'm getting up on my knees so I can respond to him privately, saying, please come closer so we can talk this over privately. And Swami comes up to me, and as he comes, he's looking at me, and I say, Swami, no, I don't have the keys. And he says, why? And I said, and then he says, why didn't they come and give it to you? And I says, yes, they came with the keys. Why didn't you take the keys? And now I'm closing my eyes and I'm remembering back to being hugged by Swami. I have to be the Hanuman, which means I have to follow the truth. That's what's coming from me. And I close my eyes and I put my hands and my hands are together and I say to Swami with my voice, but speaking to the Swami inside of me, not the Maya. I said, Swami, I came into this world to follow the truth, to speak the truth, to do the truth. That's why I didn't take the keys. There's silence. And suddenly I feel this patting on my shoulder and a sweet voice says, very happy, sit down. And I sit down, I'm in absolute bliss. I'm now feel a sense of that I had crossed a hurdle, a test that I couldn't believe. And I sit down and I'm now in bliss. And I don't know how much time goes by until finally a Sevadal taps me and I look around me and the grounds are empty. I had been in that trance state for such a long time. But that's the test that we have to follow our conscience. And we can do that on a daily basis here. It's not easy. It requires us to find silence, to listen to that voice, and to have faith in it, even if the world around you says otherwise.
Yeah, it was a very, very powerful lesson on listening to our conscience, and it was tailor-made by Baba for you. Absolutely magnificent that you stuck with it and you didn't get confused, you didn't give in, you stayed strong. And it's all about, whether we are new to the spiritual path or we're old-timers, about listening to the inner voice, to our conscience, not the ego voice, but the divine voice that is the true us inside us. In fact, nobody on the outside can really tell us what our duty is. It's always God's voice within us that will lead us to a very joyful and contented life. Listening to the inner voice is so important. And after all these difficult and challenging lessons, what we need now, Leslie, if we can, as we wrap up for this evening, is a very happy, joyful experience that you can share with us so we can wrap up tonight very, very happy and full of love. Do you have something you can share with us along those lines?
Yes, Greg, actually, to be honest, I was thinking of this gem would be perfect even before we started this this little interview conversation here, it's something very relevant for all of us. And I'm thanking everyone for spending this time here. I hope I'm not taking too much time, but I just feel so full of love, and I want to share this this experience. So when I was not when I was working in the ashram, I mean the canteen, and Swami wasn't paying attention, and I felt like he wasn't talking to me at that time. It was one afternoon. It was an afternoon, and I'm sitting and I'm tired. I'm doing the seva and everything, and I'm feeling sorry for myself, my little ego. I'm seeing Swami taking in people for interviews, VIPs, getting rings and watches and stuff, and then Swami was distributing prasad to the boys and stuff, and I just suddenly just felt like Swami doesn't love me. I mean, how can I say that after all the grace, not just by coming to Swami, but all the lifetimes of developing this soul to even come to be able to be in and be taught directly by this loving embodied Lord. But anyway, I'm feeling sorry, and I go back to the canteen and I tell my mother, I'm going to go to bed early. I'm just not feeling that great. So I go to bed, and I have maybe a small handful of dreams that are embedded into my heart, into my soul. And they are so beyond real. And this was probably one of the most important ones, because it'll answer so many questions. It is pregnant with teachings for us all. In this dream, I am back here in California, and it's nighttime in front, and I'm in front of an auditorium of a high school, and with me are a bunch of students, and these students are waiting for Swami to arrive. And Swami arrives in a limousine, and he steps out, and all the boys follow him into the auditorium. And and I want to go inside with him, but I can't. I'm not a student. So I go behind the auditorium. And behind the auditorium is a steel door. And there standing is this big man. And I know he's protecting it so that no one who isn't supposed to go in there doesn't go in there. So I go up to him and I beg him, please let me in. So he looks around and sees that no one's watching, and he opens the door and lets me in. And I walk down these stairs, and I'm walking down the stairs. I hear disco music going, and the disco music is going, and I see the students there dancing to the disco music with bowls of laddu, which is this Indian sweet. And I go down there and I ask one of the boys if I can have one. And he goes like this. They're like, no, it's his. So I said, okay. Now I noticed that there is the center of the dance area. There is that globe with the mirror spinning, and the center of attention is there. So I walk through, and finally the crowd parts. And who is dancing there on the disco floor? It is Swami in a yellow robe. And he's dancing this, and it's all strange to me. And Swami grabs me and wants me to dance with him. And I realize that this is Maya. This is the one who this world, this dancing world, the one that can give you everything, the one who can be sweet and can turn things around. And finally, I'm like, this is not what I want. And I push him away, and I run out, and I run through the crowd, and I finally burst out from the crowd, and in front of me is an aisle of a restaurant, like an aisle. And at the end of this aisle in this restaurant is the Swami that I know. He's in a burgundy robe, and he's so powerful that I can't stand. I fall to my knees. This is beyond words. This is divine. And he walks up to me and sweetly reaches down and takes my hand and shows his hand. I take his hand and he takes my hand, and he starts to walk back from where I'm coming, where I came from. And as we're walking, I'm walking on my knees, and he's talking to people in the booth, and sometimes my hand slips. The moment my hand begins to slip, he stops what he's doing and he looks back and holds my hand even tighter. The message comes that he is taking me, he's taking us, and he will not let us go. Even though it seems like his attention is somewhere else, he's with us. So we're walking. We finally get back to where the dancing is going on and the students are there. And now they see two Swamis. They take a double take. They look like this. And they, of course, just like me, are attracted to this divine. And they want to jump on him. And I'm trying to protect them, protect Swami. And Swami turns back to me and says, no. And I realize the lesson right there, that everyone has a different path to God, and we are not to interfere. Everyone, as Swami says, you don't have to change your religion. You don't have to change your path. Just follow it. Follow your conscience. Follow it back to me. If you worship Jesus, worship Jesus. If it's some other form, they're all the same. So I'm not interfering, and we continue to walk, and Swami, and now the crowd is so dense, we are walking on the shoulders of the people. And I now have a vista to see that this is an ocean of people. And I'm noticing that there is a fence that is getting narrower and narrower. So there's less and less people, and it's getting narrower and narrower. And finally, it's only Swami and myself. He's walking in front of me, and I notice we have come to a very narrow road with a barbed wire fence. And Greg, just like you were saying in the beginning about the razor's edge, this is exactly it. The spiritual road is a razor's edge. It's so easy to fall off. Just like I said, when I went on that I am God, Swami saved me from that. And I have many other stories to tell that where he saved me from myself, because only he can take us there. Only your inner self, your higher self, knows the path. So I look back up, and now I don't see his body, but his hand is still holding me, and his arm is stretched like a rubber band to infinity. And I feel this sense of speed and as if things are going fast. And what occurs to me now is I'm no longer seeing him. And I know that represents the time we're going through now. We don't see Swami with us physically, but he is taking us by the hand and taking us home. So finally, I don't know what the time is. He won't tell us how long it takes. It may be this moment that we realize our true reality, or it may be the end of our life, another lifetime, but don't worry. He's going to take us there, because what happens next? Suddenly I come to the end, and in front of me is a white fence, a picket-like fence, and it opens. I look down, I no longer see my body. And what's in front of me? It's a representation I can only tell you in words, but the feeling I can't. But it was beyond heaven. It was shown as this home. It was this meadow with small hills and a tree and the dew on the grass and the sun coming through the leaves and a small cottage in front of me. But I felt this is the end of the road. And I float behind the back of the cottage, and who's sitting there? I see Swami, but it's not Swami. It's me. I'm looking at myself, not Leslie. I'm looking, and it's no longer looking. We are one, and the whole thing melts, and I cannot tell what it is, what that feeling was, but that was the end. It was beyond bliss. So the journey is explained in this beautiful path. Don't worry. Let's not worry. Let's surrender, have devotion, and have faith. I know these are troubling times we live in, but hold on to his feet and have faith. And he promised he'll take us home. Thank you, and Sairam.